Well, good afternoon to you. It's quite breezy outside. I was going to make this video outside, but doesn't look as I'm able to do that. Strange kind of weather we're having here in the UK. Changeable, I suppose, is what we would normally say. Those of you that live here will know all about it. Everything is in a state of change, isn't it? Whether it be the weather or whether it be politics or just our own lives, really. I think, I don't know about you, but somebody in the comments said to me the other day, do I notice the movement of time? I think it was something to the effect of how things are sort of going along so quickly. I responded, yes, that the time is definitely seeming to speed up. Things and events are so rapid that we're just saying goodbye to yesterday's news, and then all of a sudden it's the next day. But I suppose what's been on my mind and a lot of people's minds, I suppose, is when we watch the news, especially the last day or two, has been the rift between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. What I'm not going to do is speculate about it. I see lots of people on the internet now popping up with things like this was a psyop and they're playing 4D chess and it's all been arranged and all this sort of stuff. And to be honest with you, I'm not on here for that today, to sort of get involved in the whys and the wherefores of Donald Trump and Elon Musk's feud. Because I'm kind of looking at these things from a different angle. It's important to note these things because as we see the geopolitical situation in the state that it's in, we must know who we're dealing with. And I think we must come to understand that there are basically two things that we need to realize. The one is that we're dealing with the schemes and machinations of men. On the other side, behind it, is God's plan, God's purpose for us in the kingdom. And Donald Trump, I don't believe, is a true believer. I think there's lots of evidence to show us that. And I certainly don't think Elon Musk is. They both have their agenda, the most powerful man in the world and the richest man in the world. They came together, and now it looks as though they're breaking apart. But there's a word that's kind of that's sticking in my mind at the moment that I want to relate to a scripture. And I think it's important that we realize, and that's the word alliance. Alliances. Coming to agreements. Men coming to agreements with one another. And I suppose when the two of them got together, you folk in America were very pleased, those that were supporting Donald Trump, very pleased at what they saw. That it looked like a very powerful alliance, a good alliance. And yet, sometimes we forget what's inside the hearts of men. And when we see what's inside the hearts of men, we realize that possibly we're putting too much trust again in the good things that are going to come from the schemes of men. Donald Trump's golden age, as he called it. And I was thinking about Daniel chapter 11. Now, I am going to admit to you, I'm by no means a grand Bible scholar. There are many people that could probably recite to you verbatim the history that is explained in Daniel 11. It's probably one of the most complicated chapters in Daniel and probably in the Bible. It's a fantastic prophecy, in fact, regarding the kings of the north and the king of the north and the king of the south. If you look into commentaries, I think one tends to think of the king of the north as being the sort of the northern Europe countries, the Roman Empire, and the king of the south, the Arabian countries. But I'm not going to speculate on that, and as I say, I certainly am no expert on it. But I just wanted to point out, really, just 2 or 3 verses from Daniel 11, not on the history side, but just concerning the way that the minds of men move along. and the way that we gain insight into the way things operate. And verse 17 in Daniel 11 is probably for me one of the most striking ones here. I'll just point out a couple. It says here regarding the king of the south, he will determine to come with his might, with the might of his entire kingdom, and will make, sorry, I should have said the king of the north. This is the king of the north establishing himself, it says just in verse 16. He will establish himself in the beautiful land, and probably the land of Israel, and will have the power to destroy it. I think we tend to think of the king of the north as the Antichrist, but I'm not going to go into that depth at this point here. He will determine to come with the might of his entire kingdom, and will make an alliance with the king of the south. And he will give him a daughter in marriage in order to overthrow the kingdom, but his plans will not succeed or help him. Interesting, isn't it, how you think of the way that royal families develop. You think of our royal family here in the UK. It consists of well, basically a German heritage, a Russian heritage, coming from all different parts of Europe and intermarrying with one another in order to maintain these bloodlines and to maintain power and, as it were, to keep it in the family. And of course we see that here. And the whole thing of Trump and Musk coming together. You bring your power and I'll bring my power, and we'll see what we can do. But we should know, really, as human beings, that human alliances don't always last. It was alliances that started the First World War. We understand the way that began. Those that aligned themselves with the German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, those that aligned themselves with the British Empire and her allies. And of course another complicated war that came out of that, with millions dying. Alliances. They're not the things that actually bring men together. They're the things that separate men in a way. And I think it's important to realize that fact. That's what I really wanted to bring this point out to you this afternoon. Just going down here to verse 23 in Daniel 11. Again, here we see, and it illustrates what I was just saying to you. After coming to an agreement with him, this is the king of the north and the king of the south, he will act deceitfully. And with only a few people, he will rise to power. Here we understand the power of an agreement, the power of deceit. Trump and Musk came together, probably in what they believed was a full, honest understanding of one another and the way that one another were going to operate. We know that both of them actually came out of the Democratic Party, and all the different alliances of people that get together in those parties, and then switched over and decided that by making an agreement, an alliance, this would bring about good for the country. And as we see, many of these things that were done with Elon Musk in the government, I believe, were good things. He did manage to discover, I should say, corruption in the government, wasteful spending, and of course that was a good thing. And it's not thought, is it, when you come to an agreement with somebody or an alliance, it's not thought that that alliance is ever going to break. But verse 27 actually further illustrates the way that the human heart operates when alliances take place. It says here, the two kings, that's the north and the south, with their hearts bent on evil. I'm not assuming this with Trump and Musk, I'm just bringing this out here as an example, will sit at the same table and lie to each other, but to no avail, because an end will still come at the appointed time. There's an appointed time for things to take place. And they sat at the same table, Musk and Trump. I believe Elon Musk was given some living quarters at Mar-a-Lago. I'm not 100% sure about that. I believe that he was given all the hospitality possible from Donald Trump in order that he would court him. Obviously, there was an enormous donation of money given by Elon Musk into the Trump campaign. But what we need to remember is that there's a further ingredient in this. There's the minds of men, there's the plans of God, and there's the plans of the devil, the plans of Lucifer, working in the minds of men. And if we go to verse 29 in 11, I'll just read some of the verses here, and then we can see what is actually going on. Where's the real battle going on? It's not just between the two men, is it? Well, here's an example here in 11. At the appointed time, he will invade the south again. That's the king of the north. But this time, the outcome will be different from what it was before. Ships of the western coastlands will oppose him. He will lose heart. Then he will turn back and vent his fury against the holy covenant. And that's where we come into it, isn't it? We're part of the holy covenant. And we need to remember that, especially now as we see the geopolitical situation ramping up, especially between the Ukraine and Russia. He will return and show favor to those who forsake the holy covenant. Here you see, Antichrist wants us to forsake the holy covenant. He's calling upon us here to be steadfast, not to look at the alliances of men. My phone's been giving me a bit of trouble while I've been doing this video, and it's been overheating, and so I've had to keep stopping. But if I'm a little bit disjointed, please forgive me. But just to point out here, verse 31, that here we can see Matthew 24 coming into play. And of course, God's dealing with the Jews. And as we see what's taking place in the world with regard to the rise of anti-Semitism and the growth of Islam, and all these things are taking place in the background as well, because God is wanting to bring his Jewish people back to him and to make them aware of their real holy covenant that they have with him. So this, of course, is the basis of this. It goes on in verse 31, his armed forces, Antichrist, will rise up to desecrate the temple fortress and will abolish the daily sacrifice. Then they will set up the abomination that causes desolation. And with flattery, there again you see the power of men, the power of words, the power of what comes out of an alliance, and the way that men flatter one another. With flattery he will corrupt those who violated the covenant. And that's Jew and Gentile here. Backsliding Christians, Jews that have yet to come to Christ. There's so many different factors in here that just come to my mind. And he goes, but the people who know their God will firmly resist him. A time of resisting the power of the enemy during the tribulation period. Those who are wise will instruct many, though for a time they will fall by the sword, or be burned, or captured, or plundered. When they fall, they will receive a little help, and many who are not sincere will join them. Here we see Jesus speaking about those that will betray one another and hate one another. I was thinking now again about the agreements and the alliances of people that come together in churches. There are so many different factors to this, of those who join themselves to us. Are they sincere? Was it a sincere relationship between Trump and Musk? Then it goes on. I'll just read a couple of verses here. Some of the wise will stumble, so that they may be refined, purified and made spotless until the time of the end. For it will come at the appointed time. The king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and will say unheard of things against the God of gods. He will be successful until the time of wrath is completed, for what has been determined must take place. And people have spoken, haven't they? Trump's the Antichrist. Elon Musk is the Antichrist. This is the spirit of Antichrist that is at work. And we see, of course, God's plan to bring, once he's brought the fullness of the Gentiles in, that he's going to bring in the Jews, and that all this is God wanting to bring about his perfect plan through bringing in his kingdom, his millennial kingdom. So there's a lot of much wider things taking place here. So we're probably going to see a lot more alliances as Donald Trump's presidency carries on, and as people move away from one another and move closer to one another. But what is God saying to us? He says quite simply in Psalm 146 and verses 3 and 4, do not put your trust in princes, in human beings who cannot save. When their spirit departs, they return to the ground. On that very day, their plans come to nothing. All the plans that Trump and Musk might have had together, all the things they might have discussed for the future, will come to nothing because the alliance has been broken. So who do we align ourselves with today? What is God saying to us about through all this? It's quite simple. And I'm just going to wind up by saying, keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep watch and trust only in him. Have a blessed weekend.